survives Wagner revolt but forced to cut deal. Wagner mercenaries were returning to base on Sunday as their mutinous leader agreed to go into exile after President Vladimir Putin was forced to accept an amnesty deal. The agreement appears to end the immediate threat that Yevgeny Prigozhin's private army could storm Moscow, but analysts said Wagner's revolt had exposed a fragility in Putin's rule. Security measures imposed under an anti-terrorism operation were still in place in Moscow on Sunday, and Prigozhin's exact whereabouts were unclear. But his troops had left a military headquarters they had seized in southern Russia, and the governor of Voronezh on their route northwards to Moscow said Wagner units were leaving the region and movement restrictions were being lifted. The long-standing feud between Prigozhin and military top brass over the conduct of the Russian operation in Ukraine boiled over on Saturday when Wagner forces seized the base in Rostov-on-Don and embarked on a long advance towards Moscow. Putin denounced the action as treason and vowed to punish the perpetrators, accusing them of pushing Russia to the brink of civil war, only to then accept a rapidly cobbled-together agreement to avert Moscow's most serious security crisis in decades. Russian blood within hours of Prigozhin's surprise announcement that his forces would return to base to avoid spilling Russian blood. The Kremlin announced that Putin's former ally would leave for Belarus and Russia would not prosecute him or Wagner's troops. By early Sunday, Wagner had pulled out of Rostov-on-Don, the regional governor said, but before they left dozens of residents were seen cheering them and chanting, "Wagner." Russia received China's support over Wagner mutiny. Russia's foreign ministry said Sunday that Beijing had backed Moscow's efforts to counter a short-lived armed uprising led by the head of the Wagner mercenary group Yevgeny Prigozhin. The Chinese side expressed support for the efforts of the leadership of the Russian Federation to stabilize the situation in the country in connection with the events of June 24, and reaffirmed its interest in strengthening the unity and further prosperity of Russia. North Korea expresses support for Moscow over mutiny. North Korea offered its full support for Russia in dealing with a recent mutiny, state media reported Sunday. At a meeting with the Russian ambassador to Pyongyang Alexander Matsegra, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Im Chon-il expressed firm belief that the recent armed rebellion in Russia would be successfully put down. He said that strong Russian army and people would surely overcome trials and ordeals and heroically emerge victorious in the special military operation against Ukraine. Heavily armed Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group pulled back after advancing most of the way to Moscow this weekend, easing Russia's most serious security crisis in decades. It is the latest message of support from Pyongyang to Moscow since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, which it has described as a U.S. proxy war to destroy Russia. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, Russia has long held the line against increasing pressure on North Korea, which is under wide-ranging UN and Western sanctions over its nuclear weapons and missile programs.